Categorically denied all county. Like the minus 30.
I'll call this meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock. I'll call the Jefferson County Board to order. Have a roll call by the county clerk, please.
Supervisor Jones. Here. Supervisor Brockler. Supervisor Hurt. Supervisor Morris.
Here.
Supervisor Lindsay.
Here.
Supervisor Castro. Supervisor Johns.
Here.
Supervisor Smith.
Here.
Supervisor Martin. Here. Supervisor Nass.
Here.
Dean. Supervisor White.
Here.
Supervisor Drina.
Here.
Supervisor Backlund.
Here.
Supervisor Kennard.
Here.
Supervisor Paulson. Supervisor Wilson. Supervisor Jacob. Supervisor Wendell.
Here.
Supervisor Felker.
Here.
Supervisor Fitzgerald.
Here.
Supervisor Nealon. And Supervisor Schultz.
Here.
Supervisor Kuchar.
Got you. Yep, and then I have Supervisor Kelly, Supervisor David, Supervisor Renard, Supervisor Lund, Supervisor Coots, Supervisor Roberts, and Supervisor Christensen, all on Zoom. So, who else?
Yeah, here.
Supervisor Payne, okay.
We have a quorum. Stand for pledge of allegiance. Supervisor Patrick, you there? Could you lead us in pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take a moment of silence to contemplate your evening. Are we in compliance with the open meetings law, Mr. Administrator?
We are, Mr. Chair.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Smith, second by Supervisor Johns. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Approval of minutes from August 20th, 2020. Supervisor Renard.
I'll move approval of the minutes as presented.
seconded. Second by Supervisor Morris. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Minutes are approved. Communications.
First, we have the treasurer's monthly report, which is on the screen sheet. Second, we have an appointment by our county board chair.
I, Steve Nance, Chairman of the County Board of Supervisors, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, as appointing authority for standing committees, hereby appoint Haley Kaufman, the local emergency planning committee for an indeterminate term. Dated August 20th of August 2020. Steve Nance, Chair. Is going.
Okay, and then the last thing is the zoning committee notice of public hearing, which takes place on September 17th. And it begins at 7 p.m. The courthouse doors will be open at 6:30.
And under communications before public comment, part of our communications tonight is to honor our retirees. So Ms. Pong.
Please bear with me. This is the first time we've done retirement recognitions virtually. So we do have quite a list of individuals who've retired since, actually since April. And if you look over here, you'll see a lot of plaques, which means that these individuals have been with the county for a lot of years. So we had 8 retirees during that time that had over 204 years of service with the county. I'm going to recognize all the individuals. We do have one virtual. I'm going to ask Kathy Colley to say a few words and then bring that individual on if she would like to say a few words as well. There are a couple of these. The first one I'm going to start out with was Mary Wallet. She was the WIC project director supervisor at the health department for over 15 years. And whether she's here or not, I'm going to say this. I used to work with her at the Fort Atkinson Hospital in the lab for a lot of years. So I knew her before she started with the county and well before I started with the county. The other individual, Robert Hall, who was a deputy, patrol deputy with the sheriff's department for 35 years. He played ball with my husband a lot of years ago, which may or may not have been coached by the sheriff at that point. So those 2 individuals, I'm afraid, maybe didn't show because I was presenting, and of course I have some stories I could have told about either one of them. Mark Nevins was Adult Protective Service Care Manager at Human Services for almost 30 years. Jerry Trump at the Highway Department as a maintenance worker for over 32 years. Ken Tennies was a patrol deputy with the county for over 25 years. Tim Veselich ended his career with the county at the Sheriff's Department as a sergeant in the jail, over 20 years of service with us. And Darren DiNucci, who is a jail deputy for over 25 years. So as I'm going to run back to the computer and bring Kathy on, I'd also like to recognize Lynette Holman, who was the Early Intervention Service Coordinator for Human Services for 22 years, or that's where she ended up her career.
So Kathy, if you're on.
I am on. Thank you, Terry. Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to recognize Lynette Holman this evening. As Terry mentioned, Lynette worked for our Birth to 3 Jefferson County Human Services program for 22 years, dedicated her career to helping children in our Birth to 3 program. She brought sincere compassion and really unmatched knowledge to our community. Lynette assured that our program always recognized and captured the family voice. Her imprint will remain on the Birth to 3 program and our staff for many years to come. She was a true advocate for every child and made sure that the child and the family received every available service. Lynette also had the unique gift to share her own experience in a really helpful and caring way with families. So it is with great gratitude that I recognize Lynette Holman. Thank you, Lynette.
Thank you, Kathy.
Well, Nat, if you want to say a few words, go ahead, please.
Hi, can you hear me? Oh, thank you, Kathy, so much for that. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. And I retired with not really wanting to retire at the time that I did, but just because of life events, I needed to. Just spend time with my mom and my husband. And I really truly miss the first three, and I appreciate all the years and working with everybody there. It meant so much to me, and to be able to help those families. And it does my heart good to have been there for all the families. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette.
Thank you for all your service. Thanks, Terry. Public comment, is there any public comment tonight? For things that are on the agenda. Items on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move on to resolutions, committee reports, resolutions, ordinances, finance committee. Supervisor Jones.
Resolution number 2021, entering a contract with Edge Consulting for structural engineering service related to the 911 telecommunication system improvement project. In 2018, the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office and law enforcement agencies utilized the county's 911 emergency response system, identified the need for the system to be upgraded to ensure the reliability and sustainability of the system. Jefferson County has since contracted with General Communications to develop a P25 digital radio system infrastructure and True North Consulting to assist with managing the contract with General Communications. Over the course of the project, it has become clear that the new tower structures will need to be constructed to the specifications necessary to support the equipment for the current and future needs of the 911 telecommunication system. Edge Consulting has engaged to provide structural engineering services in Jefferson County and several other towers, and as such, possess proprietary knowledge of the county's current tower structure. The Law Enforcement Emergency Management Committee considered this resolution on July 31, 2020, and informally recommended to enter into a contract with Edge Consulting. The Finance Committee considered this resolution on August 13, 2020, and voted to enter into a contract with Edge Consulting to perform structural engineering services at a cost not to exceed $244,000 over the course of the project. The Finance Committee recommended forwarding to the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors for approval. Fiscal note. Funding for this project has been included as part of the $3.5 million currently budgeted in the 2020 capital project budget account number 4.594819 for the 911 telecommunications system improvement project. No budget adjustment is necessary. Mr. Chair, I move for passage of this resolution.
Second.
The second was by Supervisor Morris. Any discussion? Discussion, questions? We've been over this before. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Passes by voice. Supervisor Jones.
Resolution number 2020-22, disallowing claim in the deed Ballesteri. A claim has been made against Jefferson County for damages. The claim has been reviewed by the county insurance carrier WIMIC and was recommended for disallowance based on the finding that the county has no liability for this claim and is not legally responsible for alleged damages. This resolution formally denies the claim filed against Jefferson County and directs the Corporation Council to give the claimant notice of disallowance. The Finance Committee met on August 13, 2020 and recommended forwarding this resolution to the County Board for approval. Fiscal note, this matter has been referred to the Wisconsin Municipal Mutual Insurance Company WIMIC and will be resolved in accordance with the terms of the county policy. Mr. Chair, I move for passage of this resolution.
Moved by Supervisor Jones. Do I have a second? Second by Supervisor Johns. Any discussion on this resolution? Any discussion? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the resolution passes. And Supervisor Jones.
Resolution number 2023, authorizing the county administrator to enter in a letter of intent with Iqui Development LLC for the sale of approximately 12.8 acres of land owned by Jefferson County, formerly used as the Jefferson County Highway site in the city of Jefferson. Jefferson County has been preparing to sell the former Central Highway site in the city of Jefferson for redevelopment use. Efforts have included: 1, working with the DNR for final environmental closure; 2, rezoning the property to a mixed-use zoning within the city of Jefferson; 3, developing and approving a certified survey map to consolidate adjoining properties to promote future land use and development; 4, coordinating with the city of Jefferson for future development, including the development of a joint city-county park in the floodplain area of the property; 5, funding by the city of Jefferson for a new road and utilities within the property for future development; 6, negotiations for a land exchange with the City of Jefferson Housing Authority. The county has entered into negotiations with various potential developers for the development of the former highway site over the last 12 to 18 months. The Finance Committee has been provided updates on potential offers to purchase this property, but none of the offers were sufficient for serious consideration. The county administrator met with Iqui Development, which had expressed interest in the development of the property. Iqui Development is currently engaged in several projects in the city of Jefferson and has a good understanding of the market. The Jefferson County Finance Committee met in closed session on August 13, 2020 for the purposes of considering offers to purchase this property and provided guidance to the county administrator of acceptable terms and conditions of sale. If the terms and conditions are met, the Finance Committee determined that it was up to the best interest of the county to sell the property to Iqui Development. Iqui Development is not seeking tax increment financing from the city of Jefferson, and to date, a tax increment financing district has not been established for this property. Therefore, the proposed project will immediately generate property taxes for all taxing authorities covered by this project. The county administrator finalized negotiations based on the terms and conditions established by the Finance Committee and subsequently received a formal letter of intent for the purchase of this property at the price of $80,000 per acre for approximately 12.8 acres. The Finance Committee has recommended forwarding this to the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors for their approval. Fiscal note. Proceeds from the sale of the property will be collected into the county's capital project fund. The Finance Committee will review plans for the use of these proceeds and make a recommendation to the County Board of Supervisors at future meetings. Mr. Chair, I move for passage of this resolution.
Number second. Second by Supervisor Smith. Discussion, questions?
Mr. Chair,
Supervisor Song.
Army shop was or does it include any other parts of the street?
So most of the property there is intact, but it is to the east of the new street that's been installed primarily where the old facility was. It also includes the property that's north of the drainage ditch line, and east of the new road as well. It includes the property that's south of Pruner, a small little parcel that's by a lift station right down there. And then across on the west side of the street, there was an old yellow pre-engineered structure, approximately 2 acres, but that's where it was talked about in past, is that like a potential brewery site, et cetera. That would be included in this. Where the furniture store used to have, yes, that's the part, yes, by the lift station, that would be included. Correct. Right.
Any question?
I want to make one quick clarification. As an executive summary, it says it's not an existing TIF or TID right now. This property isn't a TIF or TID right now, but it's towards the end of the expiration. So it's almost done with its spending period. So just, I noted that when I was prepping for tonight. It is in a TID district that's about to expire. So.
Question.
Other questions?
Mike Kelly. Did we receive any appraisals on this property?
Mike, wait a second. We got to get a mic on here.
He's on Zoom.
Hello?
That's better.
Thank you. Have we had the property appraised, and how does this offer compare to the appraisals?
We had appraisal done about, let's say, 3 or 4 years ago. This exceeds the appraisal. That was done about 3 or 4 years ago, by quite a bit.
Well, wouldn't it be wise to have it appraised now that we've made the final kind of design of the property that could significantly affect its value?
I'll leave that to the board, but when it was appraised, the park was included as part of that appraisal value, knowing that it would increase the value to the east of the road.
And this offer is in line with that appraisal?
Can you repeat the question, Mike?
Is this offer in line or with that appraisal?
It's higher than the appraisal.
Thank you.
Other questions? Kirk Lund, online.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize if this has already been addressed. I'm having a little difficult time hearing here. Does this sale mean that the plan to create a joint city-county park on the floodplain part of the property is no longer being pursued, and if so, why?
Supervisor Lundis, then, actually that park is about 85% complete already. They're in the midst of actually installing the piers right now. Our Parks Department has been installing all the plantings along the shoreline, restoration there. Once that is complete, we'll be coming with the final lift for the parking lot. The Highway Department is issuing the final lift of the street itself. The only thing that will not be complete yet that we're working with the city on is that there's a bathroom that's expected to be installed there, and the city was getting some bids in on that bathroom. But other than that, by the end of this fall, the majority of that park will be available and installed, ready to go.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Other questions, concerns? Just ready. Supervisor Moore. Anybody online? Seeing none? All right. I have a vote. We'll have a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously by voice. Takes us to, if you have your revised agenda, item 10, Human Resources Committee. You should have a separate sheet that will come with the packet. Supervisor Broderick.
Resolution 2020-24, approving temporary suspension of personnel ordinance, section HRO 360, hours of work, overtime, compensatory time as it relates to public health nurses and public health nurse manager. Public health care professionals are responsible for treating and working with patients and families affected by COVID-19. As of August 17, 2020, Jefferson County, excluding Watertown data, had 619 positive tests and 12,451 negative tests. Each positive case requires staff to conduct case investigation and contact tracing. This involves working with individuals who have been confirmed positive for COVID-19 and to identify and provide support to people, contacts, who may have been infected through exposure to the confirmed positive individual. Since the onset of COVID-19 in Jefferson County public health nurses have been required to work additional hours into the evening and on weekends, accruing excessive amounts of compensatory time. Due to the demands of COVID-19, it is unrealistic that the nurses will be allowed to use all of their vacation compensatory time by the end of 2020. The Jefferson County Personnel Ordinance currently states that public health nurses and the public health nurse manager are eligible to accumulate compensatory time on an hour-for-hour basis for time worked in excess of 40 hours in a work week. There should be no cash compensation for the accrued exempt compensatory time. In addition, they may accrue up to 120 hours compensatory time on an hour-for-hour basis for actual hours worked over 40 hours per week. This bank may be replenished but it must be used by November 30th of each year or it is forfeited. An extension may be requested by November 15th of each year, subject to the approval of the county administrator. A request to carry over any compensatory time earned between November 15th and November 30th must be made to the Human Resource Department by December 10th, subject to the county administrator's approval. Compensatory time approved for carryover must be used by March of the succeeding year. The coronavirus outbreak is a unique occurrence that has not been relented for the last 5 months. It is unknown exactly how long it will continue. Although nurses continue to attempt to schedule time off from work, it is unlikely they'd be able to take 3 weeks of vacation on average as well, and it's in some cases over 4 more weeks of compensatory time. Based on the current ordinance, this compensatory time would then be forfeited. Therefore, it is being requested to temporarily suspend section HR 360 hours of work overtime and compensatory time and allow all public health nurses and the public health nurse manager to accrue compensatory time for COVID-19 related activities for the first 5 hours of actual hours worked over 40 hours per week. Any hours actually worked over the 45 hours per week in COVID-19 related activities will be paid as overtime at a rate of equal to hour of the regular rate of pay, and the current 120 maximum hour will be increased to 480 hours. This request is retroactive to March 17, 2020, less any hours compensatory time already used or scheduled to be used, and effective through October 31st, 2020. The Coronavirus Aid and Economic Security Act, CARE Acts, provides for payment to state and local and tribal governments navigating the impacts of COVID-19 outbreak. Eligible payments include payroll expenses for public health, whose services, 1, are substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency, 2, were not accounted for in the adopted 2020 budget, and 3, were incurred during the period that begins on March 1st, 2020, and ends on October 31st, 2020. Therefore, the temporary suspension of exempt compensatory time provision of the personnel ordinance will not only allow our public health professionals to be compensated for the unexpected hours they have worked, but they will also not have a financial impact on the county's fund balance. On September 1st, 2020, the Human Resource Committee reviewed the request from the county administrator to approve the temporary suspension of Personnel Ordinance HR 360, hours of work overtime compensatory time as provided below, and recommend forwarding this resolution to the County Board for resolution consideration. Number 1, public health nurses and public health nurse manager may accrue compensatory time on an hour-for-hour basis for COVID-19 related activities for the first 5 hours of actual work worked over 40 hours per week. 2, public health nurses and public health nurse manager may be compensated over time, paid at a rate equal to the regular rate of pay for any hours actually worked over 45 hours per week on COVID-19 related activities. 3, public health nurses and public health nurse managers may accrue up to 480 hours of compensatory time on an hour-for-hour basis for actual hours worked over 40 hours per week. This temporary suspension is retroactive to March 17, 2020, and effective through October 31st, 2020. Compensatory time that the public health nurses and the public health nurse manager have already used or have scheduled to use may not apply to the temporary suspension of items 1 and 2. Fiscal note, as of August 15, 2020, 6 public health nurses and the public health nurse manager have a total of 955.5 hours that are not included in the 2020 budget that will be compensated at either overtime or regular rate of pay or used as compensatory time that otherwise would have been forfeited. As of August 15, 2020, the total cost, including associated benefits, is $38,597. Any hours or costs associated with the temporary suspension from August 16, 2020 through October 31st, 2020 is unknown at this time. However, it is anticipated to be significantly less as additional limited term personnel have been hired. It is anticipated that the CARES Act will provide payment for all these eligible payroll costs. In deference to these wonderful folks and their mega hours, I move for passage.
Who is the second? Second is by Dick Schultz, Supervisor Schultz. Any further discussion or questions? One second, Supervisor Reyna. Kind of looking through the machine here. One second, maybe we'll bring a mic over and people can read.
The 480 hours of comp time, when does that have to be used up by?
Sure.
That cap is actually adjusted on behalf of all the comp hours that were already increased. And most of that will be paid out as the hour overtime will convert it to that overtime. So essentially any of that may have been up at the 480 hours, if they're not using it by that October 31st, they will be paid out.
Supervisor Morris.
So I'm sure there's a good reason, but what exactly is the reason for the October 31st cut?
In general, that is, and we'll review it again at that time, but that is when the CARES Act funding has to be used up by, is that October 30th?
Other questions? Supervisor Tranigan.
These funds are compensated by the feds now.
That was a yes from people who couldn't see.
So sorry, yeah, we anticipate based on research we have done that based on us, this being overtime at the hour per hour rate, this will be compensated under the CARES Act because it's unbudgeted within the budget. So each requirements under the IRS guidelines.
Other questions? Questions, concerns, discussion? None? In favor of this resolution, say aye.
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 Opposed? Seeing none, resolution passes. H is for planning and zoning. Our chairman and our secretary are both on. I'm the vice chair of that committee, so I will handle this report tonight. Report to the honorable members of Jefferson County Board of Supervisors, Jefferson County Planning and Zoning Committee, having considered petitions to amend the official zoning map of Jefferson County filed for public hearing held August 20th, 2020, as required by law pursuant to Wisconsin statutes. Notice thereof having been given and being duly advised of the wishes of the town boards and persons affected or in the areas affected, hereby makes the following recommendations: approval of petitions, the listing of petitions as listed in the report, dated this 31st day, August of 2020, Dwayne Paulson, Secretary. Move us to the ordinance. Ordinance number 9. Ordinance number 9, amending the official zoning map. I move for the adoption of this ordinance as printed. Who was the second? Supervisor Zastro was the second. Mr. Kennard. For the record, Supervisor Kennard is abstaining for possible conflict of interest. Any questions? All in favor of this ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the ordinance passes. Public comment. Any public comment of a general nature for items not on the agenda? See none, announcements.
Good evening. I'm sorry, I got several announcements for you all tonight. Bear with me. So the first one is the revised agenda sheet. You'll see 2 meetings in October. So just a reminder, it is on the 13th. You'll get to spend some quality time with me as I present the budget for 2021. The staff has worked extremely hard and have put a lot of effort together to get this prep for you all. So just keep in mind that'll be on October 13th. On October 27th, that is not a typo. We do have 2 meetings in October. We have some new board members, but that is our public hearing for the budget. And so if you have folks who like to speak to the board to talk about what they think should be in the budget or not in the budget, that is a great opportunity for that to occur. So that is on October 27th. As in past practice, if we have other action items, those could be taken up at that meeting as well, but the primary purpose is for a public hearing on that case. Also, we gave an additional notice last week that we're tentatively looking at a basically committee of the whole of the county board on September 29th. We're looking at this to be about a 4 to 6 o'clock meeting. And the purpose of that meeting is to brief the entire county board of the work that the Buildings and Grounds Committee, along with staff and Potter Lawson, has been doing related to a potential project at the courthouse, jail, and sheriff facilities. This has also been reviewed by the Executive Committee and Finance Committee. So based on conversations with the chairs, they thought it was appropriate we start brief the whole county board at this point in time for an update so we can have a discussion. What are the next steps if there's next steps? Prior to that, we're looking to have basically an open house of the facilities of the courthouse, jail, sheriff facility, MIS structure. Not all the board members have seen our facilities and the inner beams of the buildings. And so we're looking at being about 2 to 4 in the afternoon. At this point, we're looking at being more of like an open house concept. And if you were interested, we'll probably have some signups so we can kind of separate groups and get you the points. We've arranged with the courts so you can go behind the scenes of the court areas as well for areas that the public doesn't usually get to see. So you can kind of see what goes on back there, get you down to the sheriff's department, etc. So plan on that being September 29th. At the committee of the whole, we'll have Potter Lawson present along with the mechanical engineers. We will also have Moss Brothers who've been helping looking at phasing and construction costs. Elders and Associates plans on being there as well as talking about what financing might be like as well. And obviously answer questions. Also this week, we will be having COVID testing at the fairgrounds. So on Friday, the 11th from 10 to 6. And then on Saturday from 8 to 1, the National Guard will be here on site in, I believe, the cattle barn, or horse barn, the dairy barn. So the process is slick. If you are interested in getting in, that's free testing. Then finally, I have one big important announcement. So there's a young lady who seats to my left who has been serving for Blair since he's been gone. And I think we might not be in the fair park by the time Blair gets back to work for a county board meeting, but there's a special thing today. It's called her birthday. So I think we kind of need to do a little rendition of birthday. Elaine is our law on her birthday. I'll try to start and we'll go from there.
To you. Happy birthday to you.
Thanks for all your help these last 2 months, Elena. So as a quick note, for me in October, we are going to try to be back in the county board. We met with the executive committee in case some things we're going to try to have in place. The intent is we'll be meeting with the county board starting October 13th. Zoom will continue to be offered as an option going forward for those months and going forward, but just kind of different plan. It will be in a county board room starting next. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Supervisor Schultz.
Next week, Friday and Saturday, the Solid Waste Committee is having an Operation Clean Sweep hire retreat, and Red Shear is having a little bit of trouble getting volunteers to help with Clean Sweep. I don't know, COVID or whatever it is. So it's in Watertown. If you think you can help, Friday, I think it's 4:30. On Saturday morning, it's from 8 to 10 in Watertown. If you think you can help, please contact Rick Shear at the courthouse and let him know because he is looking for help.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Schultz. Any other announcements? Any other announcements? If none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Supervisor Kennard, second by several over here. Supervisor Johnson. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Stay